Battle of Uhud. The defeat of Badr was an ignominy which the Qurayshites' pride could not leave unavenged. Revenge was therefore the catchword all over Mecca. The Meccans even forbade lamenting over their murdered people or ransoming their captives at Badr battle, lest the Muslims should realize the grave degree of sadness and feeling of tragedy they were experiencing. In the wake of Badr event, Quraysh was in common concept and started fresh preparations to launch an overall war against the Muslims in order to restore their blemished prestige and wounded pride. The most enthusiastic polytheists desiring to go into a new battle were Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl. They were determined to crush the commonwealth of Islam once and for all. The emissaries were sent to all the tribes to make common cause against the rising faith. As a consequence of this, they managed to enlist the support of two well-known tribes, Kinana and Tihama, besides some desert Bedouins, Habish. It was also decided that the profits of the escaped caravan headed by Abu Sufyan, which amounted to 1,000 camels and 50,000 dinars, should be devoted for providing equipment to the army. The Noble Quran has alluded to this decision of theirs in the following words: Verily, those who disbelieve spend their wealth to hinder men from the path of Allah, and so will they continue to spend it. But in the end it will become an anguish for them. Then they will be overcome. They also devised other ways of recruitment, including hiring poets to entice the tribes into fighting the Muslims. Safwan allured Abu Azza, the poet, to work in this context in return for riches after the war, or supporting his daughters if killed. Incidentally, this poet was prisoner of war. In the context of the Badr events in the hands of the Muslims, and the Prophet was gracious enough to release him on ransom, provided he would not engage in fight against him. Abu Sufyan nursed the most grudge against Muslims because he had lost most of his supplies in As-Sawik invasion, let alone the heavy economic losses the Quraysh had sustained in the aftermath of the events that featured the platoon of Zayd bin Haritha. In the light of these successive failures, Quraysh precipitated and accelerated their preparations for a decisive battle with the Muslims. At the turn of the year, everything was ready for the move. The Meccans also decided to take their women along with them, for they might arouse them to fight manfully. Thus, a contingent of 3,000 pitched warriors, of whom 700 were male soldiers and 200 well-mounted cavalry, with 3,000 camels and 15 women, marched towards Medina. The general leader was Abu Sufyan bin Harb. The cavalry, under the leadership of Khalid bin al-Walid, assisted by Ikrimah, were entrusted with the flag. All deep-seated feelings of hatred, with hard-based grudge, enveloped the whole process, foreshadowing bitter, bloody revenge instigated fighting between the two parties. Meanwhile, Al-Abbas was closely watching the military movements and preparations for war, and these were all included in an urgent message sent by him to Prophet, who received it while he was in Quba Mosque, read the letter to the Prophet, who asked him to be reticent with respect to its serious contents. He hurried back to Medina, convened a meeting with the helpers and immigrants, and conducted with them serious consultations as regards the measures to be taken. The whole of Medina was put on the alert, and all men were heavily armed even during prayer in anticipation of any emergency. A group of helpers volunteered to guard the Prophet and kept watchful eye all night at his door, amongst whom there were Saad. Lest they should be taken by surprise, armed groups of Madanis began to police the entrances and roads leading to the city to reconnoitre the movements of the polytheists. Muslim platoons began to patrol the routes for any probable enemy raids. The Meccan army, on the other hand, continued the march along the usual western road. On reaching Al-Abwa, wives suggested that they dig up the grave of the Prophet's mother, but the leader of the army refused to do so for fear of the consequent results. The army then followed and turned right to encamp themselves at a place called, that was on Friday 6 Shawwal 3 AH. A consultation assembly for a defense plan. The scouting party of Medina conveyed the news of the Meccan army step by step. Then the Messenger of Allah held a head military consultation assembly to exchange views about the situation. He told them about a dream he had. He said, "By Allah, I have dreamt of, I implore Allah to be a dream of bounty, cows slaughtered, and that there was a groove at the pointed top of my sword, and that I had inserted my hand into an immune armor." The interpretation of the cows was that some of his men were killed, and the groove at the pointed top of his sword was that a member of his house would be hurt. As for the armor, it was Medina. Then he offered a suggestion that his companions should not go out of Medina, and that they should encamp themselves within the city. He was of the opinion that the enemies should be left in the open to exhaust themselves, and thus the Muslims would not risk a battle. But if they thought of attacking Medina, Muslim men would be ready to fight them at the mouths of lanes, whereas Muslim women would help from over the house roofs. The head of the hypocrites who attended the meeting as a chief of Al-Khazraj supported the Prophet's plan. As a matter of fact, his agreement was not based on the righteousness of the plan, but rather on personal benefit. He did not want to fight. On the contrary, he secretly aimed at being far away from fight. However, it was Allah's will that he should be disclosed and disgraced in public. For the first time, it was his will that the curtain which concealed their disbelief behind should be uncovered and pulled down. Allah's will enabled the Muslims to recognize the reality of those snakes that were creeping within their garments and inside the sleeves of their clothes. Thanks to Allah, they recognized them in one of the most critical times of their lives.